The Zimbabwe situation is rapidly plunging into the economic and political crisis of 2007 and 2008, which resulted in the signing of the General Political Agreement, the GPA, which culminated in the formation of the Government of National Unity, GNU. The GNU, through the GPA, was tasked to come up with a constitution, a people-driven constitution, which they did, and they enacted the 2013 constitution. So the people of Zimbabwe, through that constitution, decided how they should be governed. And there is not a single individual or a single political party which has got the monopoly right to amend and alter the constitution as it feels. It is the people of Zimbabwe who has the final say, not a single political party. For those who were born after independence, after 1980, the General Political Agreement, the GPA, is similar or can be equated to the Lancaster House Constitution, which was also an agreement among the warring parties to end the war and find a lasting peaceful solution. So the same with the General Political Agreement, the GPA. For those born after independence, or who were still very young after independence, the only political agreement that they lived to experience is the General Political Agreement, and to them it is sacrosanct and it must be respected. Today's crisis is a result of Emerson Mnangagwa trying to amend the 2013 Constitution, a product of not only Zimbabweans, but also the region, the African continent, and the United Nations, because they all took part, and South Africa in particular, where the ex-president Thabo Mbeki was the facilitator. Therefore, it mustn't be taken lightly, or people just to think they can tear it apart, as one of the war veterans said that it's just a piece of paper. It is not a piece of paper. Zimbabweans will remember the suffering, the death, and the untold political torture and victimization which happened prior to the General Political Agreement. A lot of people died. Therefore, anyone who would try to mock Zimbabweans by demeaning that constitution certainly is out of the way. But what is now worrisome is how Emerson Mnangagwa is trying to amend the constitution. There's nothing wrong with amending the constitution as long as it is done the proper way. Mnangagwa wants to amend the constitution, and especially those sections of the constitution which do not require parliament or any other person just to change without involving the masses through a referendum. This is where the bone of contention is. Where the majority of Zimbabweans are saying, let us go the referendum route. It looks like it's a simple request, but for Emerson Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF, it isn't. It's a mammoth task, and he doesn't even have the political will to attend to that. The main area of contention is the Sadc Seom report, the Sadc Election Observer Mission report of 2023, which made recommendations based on the outcome of the election or the way the election was conducted, where they made a number of recommendations to the effect that the elections as a whole were not free and fair. Therefore, they made recommendations which the government of Zimbabwe and the people of Zimbabwe must attend to. It is that Seom report which is the stumbling block for Emerson Mnangagwa to follow the referendum route, because a referendum is an election. So Zimbabwe cannot have another election before the recommendations contained in the Sadc Seom report are attended to. That is, where the whole issue is. So Mnangagwa is trying to buy time so that between now and 2030, some people obviously forget about the Seom report, which is gathering dust somewhere in the offices there, Sadc offices or wherever it is, and it will be forgotten about, just like many other reports that the African leaders will come up with, file them, and they die a natural death. So that is the hope that Mnangagwa has. That is why he wants to extend his tenure until 2030, and hoping that some of the leaders who were part of that report, by 2030 they would either have served their mandatory 2 terms, for example, Cyril Ramaphosa, or some would have lost elections. There would be regime changes in the different countries of Sadc, and that will be the end of the Seom report. So the Seom report is not a Zimbabwe report, it is a regional report. So is the EU report and the African Union report, which made similar recommendations about the election. And resources were allocated towards election observer missions. A lot of money, which could have been used elsewhere to improve people's livelihood. But that is not happening. And the leaders choose just to ignore that. That is unacceptable. And that must be challenged. So I would like to call upon the leaders of the Sadc countries, the African Union, the European Union, and the United Nations, who observed the 2023 elections and came up with reports and recommendations to make sure that those recommendations are implemented. That is my plea and my call. The history of how Mnangagwa came to power is known by everyone. He came through unconstitutional means. Some have called it a coup, a military coup, which I disagree, because the army generals failed to remove Robert Mugabe. I'm sure most of the people in the world were watching their TV screens when Mugabe was reading a statement, which everybody thought was his stepping down statement. But instead he ended it up with Asante Sana. You know, to the total disillusionment of the army generals who were around him. They didn't understand what was happening, and the entire world didn't understand. It was only after a motion of impeachment was put before Parliament by both the opposition and ZANU-PF that Mugabe decided to resign before the impeachment. After his resignation, what happens? The person who was supposed to take over as president, the late Pekezela Mpoko, did not take over. ZANU-PF then decided to do their own thing, their own illegal thing, their own unconstitutional thing, by imposing Emerson Mnangagwa, who was outside the country then. He was in South Africa. So we have a president who came into power through unconstitutional means, and goes for election in 2023. The elections are not free and fair. The results are contested, and a report is made with recommendations. So it is that report, or those reports, which must be attended to. And Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF are not willing to do that. This is why they want to extend his tenure, in the hope that they can, con the entire world. But that cannot happen. Right now, Zimbabweans should be seized with the Seom reports, making sure that they are implementing each and every aspect of that report. That is what should be happening between now and 2028, where we're supposed to be having the next election. So we cannot talk of constitutional amendments before we attend to the recommendations of the Seom report, which is legally binding, by the way, because Zimbabwe is a member of Sadc, is a member of the African Union, and that must happen. I thank you.